Christina Vori.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Terrific. So Maria was kind enough with James to send the documents that we're going to be referring to today last Friday. But before we start on those, I wanted to have a little context for this meeting of the Governance Committee. First thing I would say is that the Evaluation Subcommittee has gone away and has come into the Governance. Steve's has come into the Governance Committee where it rightly belongs, basically. At the end of 2022, we will be losing JT and Art as chair and vice chair. No, not yet. And so it will be the responsibility of this committee starting probably in the spring or after the first of the year to set in motion a process to move ahead to identify the new chair and the new vice chair. And so in this meeting in October and in the November meeting, we're going to cover a number of things that were brought about first by the passage of Prop 14, which changes some of the documents, and we'll be walking you through that. And also, we need to carry out our self-evaluation as outlined in the governance documents that you've already reviewed. So we are going to review the draft self-evaluation forms today. We'll review the process, we'll review the forms. If everybody is in agreement, we will give them to Art and JT to fill out. In the November meeting of our committee, we will go over those self-evaluations and we will have a meeting with Art and JT, and then we will make a recommendation to the board. We thought we might have the compensation survey by now, but we don't. So when the compensation survey comes in, we will also make a recommendation regarding compensation, but we just don't have those data right this minute. So we're going to get all of this finished before the end of the year. And then after the first of the year, we can initiate a process for the new leadership. So if there's no questions or comments, I think we can go right into the first document of the mission statement and the evaluation process.
Can you put that up on the screen, please? So the mission statement was reviewed and revised to take into account a couple of things. One, the evaluation of the chair, vice chair, and president. Also to incorporate recommending a compensation policy for patient advocates, which we'll be discussing later in the meeting. And also outlined the evaluation process specifically for chair, vice chair, and CEO, president. So I hope all of you have had an opportunity to take a look at the mission statement and also the evaluation.
And I would just add to that these have been extensively reviewed by my co-chair, Christina, by myself, by the CIRM staff, and as well as by our counsel, James, who is on the call today. Does anyone have any questions or comments or changes to this fairly short and straightforward document?
Yes, I do, Judy.
Okay, Steve.
So in several places, we'll just start with the bolded headline evaluation process for chair, vice chair, and CEO/president. You'll see right away in number one that it's vice chair with an S and apostrophe behind it. Now, in the governance document, which we'll come to down the road, I think it's like the 5th document or something, we've eliminated vice chairs. We have only one vice chair, as I understand it, as a matter of internal governance. So this document actually just needs to be cleaned up a little bit to eliminate the S that occurs in several of these different provisions.
In the copy that I'm looking at, those S's are struck out. Did that not make it into? Oh, you're right. It's still there. And the one I'm looking at, they are.
I will make those changes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I think Christina originally picked up on that as well.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so we'll clean that up. And are there any other questions, comments, or changes that anybody wants to recommend? Hearing none, as JT would say, we decided that it would be a good idea to have a vote on each of these as we go through it, rather than trying to do them all together at the end. And so can we do a voice vote, Maria? No, we cannot. Okay, Maria is shaking her head. So
No, we cannot.
may I have a motion to approve the Governance Subcommittee mission statement and evaluation process document before us?
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Are there any comments before Maria calls the roll? Hearing none, as JT would say. Maria, would you call the roll?
I will, thank you. Dan Bernal,
Aye.
George Blumenthal,
Yes.
Linda Boxer,
Yes.
Jim Kovach, Judy Gasson,
Yes.
Steve Julesgard,
Yes.
Jonathan Thomas,
Yes.
Art Torres,
Dane?
Christina Vora.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, so we will take this to the board with unanimous approval from the subcommittee. The next document is the self-assessment for the chair of the governing board of the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, Jonathan Thomas. I extracted these questions from the governance document that outlays in rather great detail the responsibilities and roles of the chair. And does anyone have any additions, subtractions, comments, objections?
I will recuse myself from voting on the vice chair assessment.
Okay. Okay. Hearing none on the self-assessment for the chair and the vice chair of the governing board of CIRM, could I please request a motion to approve the drafts in front of us?
I'll move to approve the drafts.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you very much. Maria, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Dan Bernal,
Aye.
George Blumenthal,
Yes.
Linda Boxer,
Yes.
Judy Gasson,
Yes.
Steve Julesgard,
Yes.
Christina Vora.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, it's
Excuse
becoming
me, who
clear
was
to
the
me.
second? It's
It was
Beth.
Steve
Who
Jules.
was the second,
was-
please?
It was Steve Julesgard and Dan Bernal, first and second.
Thank you.
Well, it's becoming clear to me that 90 minutes will be more than enough for the agenda today.
You just jinxed us.
It's your sterling chairpersonship.
The next document is the internal governance policy, which, as I mentioned previously, has been updated to conform with changes in Prop 14 that were not in the original Prop 71.
Can you put up the presentation? Not the actual document, but the presentation. We have the PowerPoint. Judy, if it's okay with you, I was going to start with the board bylaws and go that direction and take it a little bit out of order.
That would be great.
That's all
Thank
right
you.
with you? Okay, great. Thank you. So hello, members of the Governance Subcommittee. So if we could have the first slide. So with the passage of Prop 14 came the need to update the following policies: internal governance policy, board bylaws, and board code of conduct. And I'll be going through each one. We're going to start with the board bylaws. So next slide, please. So the bylaws were amended to reflect changes made by Prop 14, including the appointment of 6 new board members. As you will recall, the board grew in size to 35. The creation of the Accessibility and Affordability Working Group. The exact language from the proposition describing the group and its membership was added. And it requires the board, requires the board review of the conflicts policies every 4 years. So that was also added. Other changes include, it removes the requirement that board members leave the room in light of remote meetings. It eliminates the legislative subcommittee. All legislative issues for consideration will go directly to the board for a vote. And very key here is the mechanism for patient advocate and nurse member compensation. And the internal team, as Judy mentioned, will be bringing back a proposal for this to the governance subcommittee in the next couple of months. Are there any questions on the board bylaws? Judy, do you want to take a vote on this individually?
Yes, let's do that.
And Maria, I assume we still have no members of the public present?
I do not see any members of the public present.
Thank you, Maria. May I request a
A motion.
a motion to approve the proposed amendments to the board bylaws? Thank you.
Move to approve.
A second, please.
Second.
Thank you very much. Maria, would you call the roll, please?
Dan Bernal. George Blumenthal.
Yes.
Linda Boxer.
Yes.
Jim Kovach.
Yes.
Judy Gasson.
Yes.
Steve Julesgaard.
Yes.
Jonathan Thomas.
Yes.
Art Toros.
Aye.
Christina Vori.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion carries unanimously, and we will present this to the board at the upcoming board meeting. Maria, continue, please. Thank you.
Yes. Can we have the next slide, please? So proposed amendments to the internal governance policy. So again, it was amended to update the internal governance policy with the language from Proposition 14. It outlines the roles of the chair, vice chair, and CEO president as described in the proposition, provides for the legislative issues to be brought directly to the board. Again, the elimination of the legislative subcommittee, adds language for accessibility and affordability working group, and it establishes the reporting structure for the CIRM team, the org chart.
Thank you very much, Maria. Are there any comments, questions, concerns about these changes?
Move to accept.
Now we're
Steve, Steve has a question.
Oh,
Yes, I do. So the last point about the organizational chart. So the access and affordability group that's going to be added to the CIRM team, I take it that's not in process yet. It doesn't appear on the organizational chart. Is that to be added later, or what is the story there?
Steve, that is the medical affairs director will be, that's where that group will be living, would be under that, that specific reporting structure.
They're going to be reporting to medical affairs and they're not going to have a standalone head of that group?
So the working group is, so the external working group of which the board members, so the internal team, yes, that's the reporting structure. I believe Maria Milan is on the line if she would like to talk about that specifically.
It just seems an odd fit with medical affairs, to be honest with you. It's a completely different area of expertise. And I would have thought that it would have had its own head reporting directly to the president.
Maria, do you want to answer?
Sure. So Steve, that is a good question. Medical affairs is a current position that's been in place. What we propose to do is take that position and expand it, and it'll be probably a different name in terms of the actual title of the senior level of this group. I can send, when it's available, a draft job description, but essentially this person heading up this group wouldn't just head up medical affairs, it would head up policy and would have expertise in the topics related to accessibility and affordability, essentially paralleling and mirroring the type of expertise that's that resides within the accessibility and affordability working group, so that this team will be the primary team, though not the only team within CIRM, that would support the priorities and the direction coming from the accessibility and affordability working group. So it could be something like, healthcare policy and medical affairs or something like that, but they seem to fit together because the medical affairs teams and classic organization handle bodies of information that relate to products and, adoption and coverage. So that will only be one of the kind of the teams within, that's overseen by the head of the group would be medical affairs. And we would envision that there would be other departments or groups within that team related to healthcare policy coverage, healthcare economics, other expertise. I hope that is responsive to your question.
Well, it's yours to manage. I would just say that on the commercial side, these would be differentiated. There would be medical affairs is very different from issues regarding access and affordability. So they would have a different reporting structure.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. One of the things and that is a very good point. I think that the difference is that CIRM itself does not have marketed products. So what happens is medical affairs, what we really do is help to kind of manage and be the bridge to the medical affairs of the various programs that are in our portfolio. So those type of matters are dealt with by the sponsors. However, we do need a parallel team in-house to kind of look at the overall big picture to make sure that CIRM is supportive and aligned with the needs of our academic and industry sponsors.
Fair enough.
Judy, can I just say a word here?
Yes, please, JT.
Just sort of following one of the comments he made with respect to where the working group is at the moment. As you recall, it includes 7 board members chaired by Art, 10 additional outside people with different elements of expertise that they bring to the table, and then up to 15 members of the internal CIRM team. We've spent a good chunk of this year identifying these 10 external parties, and between Art and Maria and myself, we've brought, as you noted, to previous board meetings for approval membership in that group of 10. We had 2 or 3 left after the last board meeting. Those have now been identified and agreed to come on board and will be brought to the October 19th board meeting for approval. So following that, we will have had our entire 10 appointed to go with the 7 named board members, and Art will be convening the first meeting of the working group sometime thereafter. So just as sort of an FYI.
Great, thanks, JT.
Hopefully before Thanksgiving.
Terrific. Any other members of the subcommittee have questions or comments on the internal governance policy? If not, can we please repeat the motion?
So moved.
Thank you very much, Art. Second?
Second.
Thanks, JT. Maria, could you call the roll, please?
Yes. Dan Bernal, George Blumenthal,
Yes.
Linda Boxer,
Yes.
Jim Kovach,
Yes.
Judy Gasson,
Yes.
Steve Julesgard,
Yes.
Linda Malkus,
Yes.
Jonathan Thomas,
Yes.
Art Torres,
Aye.
Christina Vori.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Another unanimous approval that we will present to the board on October 19th. And
Doug, can you advance the slides?
so you have one more slide, I think.
Yes. So the next is the board code of conduct. Additions to the code of conduct were made to include the ability to sanction, in some instances, recommend removal of a board member. The exact addition reads, the board shall have the authority to sanction a member who is found by the board to have violated this code of conduct or engaged in any misconduct constituting harassment, discrimination, or retaliation. Sanctions may be imposed only by majority vote of the board, with the exception of a recommendation for removal, which requires a vote 60% of a quorum. The types of sanctions that may be imposed on a member are as follows: written censure, removal or suspension from a committee assignment, or recommendations for removal by the appointing authority.
Question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
In the past, as you well know, because you were part of those discussions with me, we had only one severe problem with a former board member. Up to now, the Proposition 71 provided for removal, but only with a writ of mandate from the Attorney General. I think we have changed that. Is that correct, James?
That's right. Although the board doesn't have the power to remove, it can make a recommendation to the appointing authority that a member be removed.
Correct. I just want to make sure that when we say in any misconduct, harassment, discrimination, or retaliation, would that cover the conduct that we were faced with before?
I think I don't know how to answer that question. So that would be up to other, I think, board members to weigh in on.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're not leaving out, personal conduct that is not harassment, discrimination, or retaliation, but is viewed by the board as a problem.
Understand. I think the board code of conduct, this was just the addition to it.
Okay, I'll have to reread it.
Doug,
All right.
we can put it up if you'd like, Art. That's not a problem. Doug, do you want to put up the whole board code of conduct, please?
Or James just can answer. That'd be save some time.
Yeah, there are provisions under the board code of conduct that prohibit the members from disclosing confidential information. So that would be a basis for the board to sanction a member.
In this document, James, there's that language?
Yes, Steve, it says members are responsible for protecting the security of any confidential information provided to them as members of the board. And the provision that's highlighted below.
Oh, I see that. Okay, got it.
Right.
Mhm.
But again, James, it goes back to my question, whether we are covering that conduct under these provisions that we were faced with earlier.
Yes, I believe it would be covered.
Where?
Well, I think the provision regarding confidentiality and the provisions regarding harassment, discrimination, retaliation could all come into play. The code of conduct obviously sets forth the board's expectation for the manner in which members comport themselves. And if a member fails to comport himself or herself according to the code of conduct, then with this change, the board would have the power to impose whatever level of sanction it felt appropriate.
And wherever this conduct may have taken place.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on the code of conduct or the changes to the code of conduct? If not, I request a motion to approve the amendments in front of us on the code of conduct.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you very much. Maria, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Dan Bernal.
Aye.
Thank you. George Blumenthal.
Yes.
Linda Boxer.
Yes.
Jim Kovach.
Yes.
Judy Gasson.
Yes.
Steve Julesgaard.
Yes.
Linda Malkus.
Yes.
Jonathan Thomas.
Yes.
Art Torres.
Aye.
Christina Vori.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. I want to thank my co-chair, Christina, Maria Bonneville, James, everybody that worked on updating these documents. It's going to be a busy and exciting year for this committee, and I want to thank you all for agreeing to participate as we move forward. Before we adjourn the meeting, are there any other questions, comments, or concerns that anyone wants to bring up? I guess there was never any members of the public, Maria. Okay.
There were not.
Dr. Malkus has joined us.
If not, thank you all very much for your work on the committee, for participating today. And we're going to give you back an hour of your life.
Great job.
Thank you.
Great job.
Excellent meeting, and go blue.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Excellent meeting. Go Orange.
JT, if you leave now, you should be able to make it to the stadium in time.
I actually, believe it or not, turned down tickets because I wanted to make sure I was available till 4:30 here. So I'll be watching just like everybody else from the TV.
The ultimate sacrifice by JT.
He really has. That's incredible.
So noted in this performance review.
Yes, please note it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.